Welcome to the Athena Wellness Podcast, the show that invites you to take a seat around the community fire and listen to stories that inspire. I'm your host, Kathy Robinson, author, coach, and founder of Athena Wellness, a company that's dedicated to supporting you on your journey to live more wholeheartedly. Today's episode is brought to you by the Athena Wellness Academy, your resource for wholehearted living. The Academy's featured offering is an online course called From Type A to Type B, How to Mindfully Descend the Corporate Ladder and Invite What's Next. This course is perfect for you if you're contemplating or navigating a professional transition, and it's available as a self-study or with a small cohort of students facilitated by me, Kathy Robinson. To learn more, I invite you to go to athenawellnessacademy.teachable.com or click on the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining me. Today's episode is about what happens when you morph and contort yourself to fit in. It's about how we can override what we know is best for us. And it's about the long journey back from separation to integration. I'm joined today by Natalie Viglione, the creator and host of the Disrupt Now program and podcast. Natalie began her career in sales and marketing, and she was very successful at her work until it took a toll on her well-being. She'll share that story along with the work she does now, which is all about the transformational journey. We go deep in this conversation, and here's what we cover. An overview of Natalie's Type A to Type B journey. How she balanced 17 years as a sales exec with her intuitive self. How she kept her inner flame burning while she transitioned out of corporate. And what her life is like today as a healer and entrepreneur. You can learn more about Natalie at natalieviglione.com, and I'll put a link to her website in the show notes. And now on to the show. I hope you enjoy this multi-layered conversation. Natalie, welcome to the Athena Wellness Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm excited to be here.
So please, share a bit about who you are and what you do.
You know, there are so many similarities that I share in your experiences. And so who I am, coming from a corporate environment into the who I am today, entrepreneur, it's been quite a journey. And what I am really on is a journey of healing. I didn't quite understand how much the 17 years in the corporate environments that I spent had depleted me of all the things that were really essential to living. I think that it was very easy being in marketing and sales and working my way up that corporate ladder for those 17 years very quickly was my opportunity to share with the world in my way that nothing could stop me. The warrior self truly was a piece of that entire journey. And then there came a point where it was roughly 7 years ago almost that I realized I could do no more. And I was faced with a very critical decision to say, you can keep going as the vice president in this marketing agency in New York City, Fifth Avenue style living, which is very similar to Wall Street, if not identical, or you can choose your true pathway and purpose that is being laid out in front of you that you know is there. For I have had several visions of what that was supposed to be. My intuition is very strong, and I did stay connected to that at all times. However, I was faced with a choice to let that higher self go, as we could call it, or choose the right path. That wasn't the easy path by any means. And so I marched into the agency at the time that I was with. And on a Monday, this was, a Friday where I got this big upheaval of, you better do something and you better do it now. And this is in my mid 30s is when this hit, and I'm in my mid 40s now. So I walked in and I quit, and I started my business. It was from that moment on that I really became who I am today. And so this business has truly evolved as fast and as quickly as I have since leaving my corporate existence behind.
So there's two things that I'd really like to dig into a little bit more. One was, what brought you to the corporate world? So was this something that you always wanted to do? Because it sounds like you arrived there like raring to go. So tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because, I've obviously really, really thought about this journey and was looking back at my 17-year-old self that left the home life with the family and said bye and never looked back again. I was always very independent, very spirited, very much the outlier, very much the one that never fit in, very much the black sheep, even though it was all good things, just not accepted in my family to be the one that asks questions. So I look back and think, okay, well, where did sales and marketing, how did I get shoved so quickly into that life? I had to put myself through college. So I was working full time. And I think it's truthfully this intuitive gift that I was very connected to since I was little, honestly opened this portal and this pathway to where I can really see another human's emotions. And therefore, I can truly read what their emotions are, what they feel like in a deep way, even though they may not express any words. And so, without me even knowing this, sales and marketing to me was a mirror of that intuitive gift because I used it in my work every day. And it actually made me really successful in that realm. So, at that time, obviously, I couldn't put these words around it, but knew there was a reason why this is so easy. It was like I didn't even have to try.
It came naturally to you.
Very naturally to me. Yes. Yes. So that gift truly was a gift. However, the problem is that as you gain experience in the corporate ladder, and I was spending most time in industries that were completely male dominated. There is no gut conversations. There is no, well, my intuition tells me. So you have to formulate almost another self to like layer over the true who you truly are aspect. And I did. And that lack of integration truly was the thing that I think eventually kind of quote unquote broke me. But yeah, it was innate, it was natural, and so that climb was quite easy.
Of all of the guests that I've had, you're the first one that articulated so beautifully this idea of formulating another self. People allude to it, but it's just like, no, it really was another person that walked into that company. And I felt that for decades, right? It's like you were this person at work, and then when you were this person at home, because those worlds couldn't meet, right? And so can you explain to our listeners a little bit of what the birth of that was, what it took to keep it going, and then I'm guessing how that finally led to those words of I quit. So can you give us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when you realize you're so quote unquote different, because other people weren't experiencing this that I could speak with, that I knew. I'm not saying they didn't exist. I'm saying that I tried to have these conversations in a spirited way, especially over the cocktails and the happy hour, which were constant. Everyone's looking at you like, I don't know what words you're saying. This is some other language. And they're like, shorting out almost. So then I'm like, okay, well, there's no one to really speak to about these, if you want to say esoteric. I never thought getting to know who you truly are is esoteric, but now I guess, it sort of was taboo almost. So this facade, this layer, this overlay of this other person shut down a lot of those abilities when speaking to other people, even though in the background they're being utilized. And so what I kept calling them is my secret superpowers. And I would use them constantly. And sometimes I would allude to this, when I'd get a little, I often had these experiences with clients when they would say, well, how did you know that? And in the marketing realm, honestly, what are you tapping into besides emotion at the end of the day? So as these two engines are running, your body is running two engines. And sure, overachiever. Yeah. I was that person. So to me, I had what it felt like endless amounts of energy. What I did not understand is, first of all, I did not have endless amounts of energy, but to let it go, to release, I became an avid athlete. So we share this as well. This is actually connected into this conversation around highly sensitive persons. What it also translates into is to let go, we have to go faster, bigger, better in the realm of even the thing that we do to get let go, like running, for example. So jogging wasn't enough for me. I had to take it to the next level and start training for a marathon. Well, marathon's not really enough. So I think I need to go do all these other races too. Oh, and then you know what? I think I'm going to actually start soccer on the weekends too, and then I should, so to let it go, like it just had to get more and more and more. And then finally, I hit a point of breaking, truthfully, in that I went for my usual early gym, 5:30 a.m. thing, running, came back to go walk my dog. And this is in New York City, which is, by the way, 6 flights of stairs to get to my apartment. But, I was just in the bathroom and then boom, I heard the snap and I got a herniated disc is what it ended up being in my L5 in my lower back. So that was one of the first initial wake up calls of like, Nat, you might want to listen, your body is going to start now showing all the symptoms to you of what you haven't been paying attention to.
What's really interesting is that you were so attuned to others' emotions. And because you were running these two, it's like, it's hard to listen to yourself, right?
Yes. It's crazy to me because I was meditating, I would do yoga. I'm a runner. So I'm in my, kind of being yeah, and connecting, but I wasn't listening. I just look back and think, how did I miss this? Well, I missed it.
You missed it to the point until you didn't. And it wound up uttering those words, I quit. So was that spontaneous or you were just waiting for the right time? How did it all end?
I mean, it was intriguing because that herniated disc thing and that journey to try to really heal that component of me was in and of itself this big thing. Part of that experience is it clearly made me start listening a lot more to what my body was saying, what my emotions were saying. But what was hard for me is I think when you are the outlier and the overachiever archetype, that experience actually throttles you into this. I got this. Come on. I can do this. I got it. So I think that's where this not listening aspect really came into play. But what's interesting is I found this woman, she just has this spark that I called it, I got a stiletto up my booty, basically, because I went to this weekend thing. I was like, I gotta go. I don't know why, but I just gotta go. It was like a women's weekend thing with Mama Gina is her name. And she has this School of Womanly Arts in New York City. I don't know if you ever came across her work, but she's been doing it for probably 20, 25 years, 30 years now. But I went on a Saturday and I was there from 9 a.m. and we stayed out until 3 a.m. And I'll never forget. I was like, that's it. I'm out. All it took was someone else being almost a mirror to what I already knew. And then I marched in on Monday and said bye-bye.
Wow.
So it was a push over the cliff, like just go already.
So give me a little insights. The first day when you woke up and you didn't have to go to an office after 17 years, like what was that day like?
I think that most of us that leave that, especially at that intense level, right? You don't know what to do with yourself. So I carried this habit, and I have it to this day. I get up now. In the last couple of years, I wouldn't say I do this every day anymore, but what I would do is I got up every day as if I was going to the office. And thereby I increased my opportunities to be able to just be ready for anything and really set the day off. But I remember feeling I went through a lot of inner turmoil of like, am I as worthy if I don't have a vice president title? Am I worthy? That first year was, from a financial standpoint, of course, when you step away from those 6-figure checks, you're already in the space of like, what am I doing? Do I remember that I live in New York City, by the way? Did I really think about this? But then, I think that for me, it was a little different because I actually could take clients with me. So I step into a big contract. So I didn't have much imbalance in a financial standpoint. The imbalance was really mine, was my own. Am I as worthy? And that was a big problem for a while, is really feeling like if you don't have a job title in this realm, when that's what you were striving for, I'm in my 30s, mid 30s now. It's not like I was 25, right? But how do you start realizing what your value and worth is, as it totally does not relate to corporate any longer?
Yeah. You don't realize how far reaching those tentacles are in your life.
You don't. You really
because
don't.
it's been rolling off the tongue for, in your case, it was 17 years. While you were still in corporate, you had some awareness that there were some parts of you that you couldn't bring to work, as you said. But how did you keep that inner flame burning? How was it that you fed that intuitive side while you were in this very logical left brain world?
Yes, I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of, again, the working out part of life, the running and everything was the actual physical running, spending time, as much time I could with my little doggy, being outside, like that fueled, that literally was my fuel. Now, the interesting thing is when that got taken away because of the herniation, which was a very painful, long process, I had to figure out, oh, what do you do when that goes bye-bye? So that made me really dig a whole lot deeper to get to this point where, okay, well, now I'm going to have to be fueled by knowing thyself inside and out. And I started to go deep. But the fuel came from really getting into the depths of who I am on a bigger level. Because if I can't go out here, if now this physical running aspect is taken away from me, well, I think that that's the only option. And so that's what I did.
So that was a release valve. What was the overlap?
I had about a remaining 5 years.
Wow. Okay. That's a really long time. So,
yeah.
So the running ramps down, this deep reflection ramps up. Suddenly you're like, okay, I can't move the way I did. This is going to be more of a mental, emotional exercise. How did you start to take that journey?
The first pieces of that really came into, okay, what else do I need to learn? What more do I need to take on in terms of knowledge and wisdom? So reading increased like tenfold. I mean, my Kindle was like, I had like 100 books on it, and it was just, that was the time I spent in subways. And then, actually it was very interesting because around the same time frame, I met my now husband. And I also went into this, how many more people can I start to get to know that maybe are in my realm? So started really searching for more like-minded people. I started to really merge into this. Well, are there things in this? I am in New York City. Isn't there anything that I can find that really can satisfy more of those pieces of me, rather than, because it was always about going out and having fun and staying out all night, which, by the way, dancing all night is not off the table. if
Good
you
for you.
can,
Good for
yeah.
you.
Yeah, because that's another kind of a release mechanism as much as it can be. But yeah, it was more of a wisdom taken that really began all of that.
Well, I think it's really helpful for, our listeners who find themselves in this kind of bifurcated place. So I love those three things, the, reading and following that breadcrumb trail, and then writing what you're experiencing, and then finding some sense of community. And it just could be one person,
Yeah,
right, that
exactly.
you can connect with, which I think is wonderful. Tell me about the work that you're doing now. We talked about the 17 years. There was the I quit. There was the, well, it's not so bad because I'm still doing things that are kind of in my wheelhouse. How long has it been now? I think you said it was 7 years.
Yeah.
And what is it like now? What are you doing now?
It's vastly different. There was so much deeper insight and wisdom that I needed to tap into to get to this place of niching down. The deer in the headlights of like, oh, this is awesome. I can do anything I want. I can really work this any way that I desire. But what I realized very quickly, and after a big mistake on my part, I did not listen to my gut. And I was like, oh, that's what happens when you don't listen and you get a client that you're like, no, that was such a wrong oil and water situation.
It's very easy to recreate your corporate experience if you're not careful.
That's it. And so clarity needed to really drive everything that I was doing. And so what I did is I sat down and I was like, oh, right, what are my values here? Seriously, like, let's really dive deep on this, because I know what they are, but I need to drive these into my business. And, consciousness, truth, and many of these kinds of things are at the top of my value list. So how can I work that into the business? And so what the creative business Team Goo became is now this creative collective where we're doing just creative work. We're writing, we're doing strategy work, we're doing some video and design. So it's all based on creativity, but it's only for one sector, which is healers and those that do good in the world. So I took this wide funnel and it came down to a very niche funnel. Started looking for clients that mirror my values, because that is the way that I knew that I'm driving my truth while helping other people drive their truth. I call it getting your magic into the world. And started to really tap into my own magic, which is what are my own innate gifts? How, from everything from the time that I was born up through to now, what are the things that are so easy for me? Because those are the things that I need to do. And so I brought all of that into, and it became the very foundation of the business. And then as that started to really culminate, I had a dream. And because I was searching for something else. It's interesting, and that when you start a business and you're like, but there needs to be more, because I'm not going to be happy if it's just this. I just feel that there's something more that needs to be expressed for me. There's a lot more. And so that's another aspect to the business, which is the life guidance. So we have Team Goo, which is the business guidance. We have Disrupt Now program and podcast, which is the life guidance area. That all came to me in a dream. Even how the logo would look, because the word up is in the word disrupt. And so for me, it was looking at the angle is, how can you take disruptions, which often are chaotic? They are quite intense, sometimes insane, sometimes full of sorrow and grief. How do you take those and see the up? How am I getting up and out of something that I was stuck in and being pushed into this new trajectory, which is going to be for my higher good. And that is the ethos of Disrupt Now.
Yeah. Well, you were ahead of your time, because now disruption is the new status quo.
Yeah.
So, and we are not equipped, as you know, to, historically, we have not been equipped to be able to handle that, because the goal was, keeping things constant on the level, and anything out of that felt like you were out of control. And now everything is out of control, and you've got to learn how to surf, right? We've become surfers.
That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about that and a little bit of life guidance. So if people are feeling, when they hit one of these rocky patches, what are some things or some suggestions for them to start to be able to get used to the feeling of feeling a little seasick and being able to navigate some of these waves?
Yeah. Seasick's a great word. Look, all of these disruptions can be in so many different facets of our life. I'm personally on a major healing journey. So sometimes our health gets depleted and taken away, and we have to rebuild it. Or, a loved one dies. The types of disruptions clearly are endless in what they can look like, the wrapper. But if we dig deep enough, what we can often realize is that in the experience is this foundational truth that will start to bubble up. So when you hit this, this major woe, this major crazy chaotic feeling in this time in your life, first of all, we need to feel the feelings that are associated with it, because we cannot repress them. They will come back up. It'll manifest in so many different ways inside the body. So we have to feel the feelings, let it go, take the time that we need to really heal that emotional aspect of what is happening. If we totally unleash hell on other people around us, then we have a whole other problem, that we have to deal with, which is now we've just ruined relationships potentially that we didn't mean to. So there's a fine harmony and balance in that. And I think, I've found that this is where this journaling, writing, moving through experiences by feeling into them in some way that's like we have a tactile way of bringing it through. And of course, sitting in silence to just be, and that is so different for everyone. I mean, personally, I like to talk to trees. I like to be in nature, but being in silence is a huge aspect to this, because then again, it's really getting in touch with what's happening. Now, what can happen from that is this intuitive side have this ability to be able to start to hear, where is this going? What is this really for? Please tell me that there's something in this that's this golden nugget that can really transition things in a way that truly will be for my higher good, or for other people's higher good that's around you, or both. And if we really listen, more often than not, it's that voice comes through very clearly and tells you exactly why. And the interesting thing is you'll sit there and be like, I know, because you already know. It's just that sometimes you don't even want to admit it, because if we're responsible for the thing, or quasi responsible for the thing, to be held accountable, for which we are for every aspect of our life. Now, if it is something that happens to you, then it's this long journey to really figure out the emotional healing aspect of how you can move around that and use it and leverage that pain to do others good, to serve others, because that's often the juxtaposition that can come from pain.
You become your own Mama Gina.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes, totally.
So before we wrap up and get your closing thoughts and your contact info, we always love to ask our guests what they've read or listened to lately. So what have you been consuming that you've been finding inspiring?
Whew. How much time do we have for this? Just kidding. I'm literally reading 10 books. This is my normal thing. But as I mentioned and I alluded to previously, I'm not kidding that I'm on a massive healing journey and I am turning into my own healer. So I stepped into master herbalism school. And so I'm becoming a master herbalist. So my life is spent really diving into the plant world and the plant kingdom in general, but this is all flora and fauna really. And so one beautiful, amazing book that I read is The Secret Life of Plants, which, by the way, is not a new book. It was written in the 70s, and it takes studies that were done almost 100, 200 years ago and wraps it into this package of showing us that we are all connected from an energetic perspective at everything on this planet, including the planet. And so that's game changing. And then another aspect to the health journey is, trying to figure out sometimes what's going on in your body. And again, as we well know, as we've talked about, 17 years of running two engines is going to cause some problems. But I've gone into a whole journey of understanding my birth and things that have happened in that really set me off and were catalysts, which is like a whole other podcast episode, obviously. But there, a book that I love is called Cure Your Fatigue. It's amazing. It's by Morley Robbins. This book is game-changing, life-changing from a wellness standpoint, because what it tells us is how to turn minerals on in our body that have been depleted by all the things in the world. And so these two things have been extremely inspirational.
Wonderful. I'll link those up in the show notes. That sounds great. Looking forward to checking those out myself.
Yeah.
So please tell our listeners the best way they can get in touch with you and what some of your offerings are.
The easiest way to go check me out is natalieviglione.com. It's kind of my umbrella site where I have all the things that we're playing in right now. Team Goo is really about connecting with businesses that are ready to launch their magic in the world in a much more creative way. And again, this is working in more of the healing author, the space of those that are truly changing the world or desire to change the world. And then I have actually launched the Tap Into Your Magic program. So this is all the work that I was using in so many ways, plus more that has kind of been downloaded in the last 2 years. And that's actually on the Disrupt Now program site. And that's also linked from my natalieviglione.com site.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, we'll link all that stuff up in the show notes, and such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate your time today, Natalie. Thank you so much.
Yes, Kathy, same. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know there are many ways you can spend your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with me. Until our paths cross again, be kind to yourself and show your warrior spirit some love. If you know anyone who could benefit from today's episode, please pass it on. And many thanks for supporting the show by subscribing and leaving a review. It means a lot, and it helps others find their way to our circle. If you'd like to access the show notes, have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode, or would like a transcript of this episode, visit www.athenawellness.com/podcast. Until next time, be well.